In front of one of San Francisco's most imposing buildings, a symbol of power and technology, a young woman hurries and fumbles with her papers, stumbling as an entire folder of documents scatters across the ground. Amid curious glances, a man impeccably dressed, known for his rigid and almost unshakable demeanor, stops before her. He is Leonardo Vasquez, the respected CEO of one of the largest companies in the technology sector. Curious to find out the ending of this emotional story? Like, comment, and share. It helps the channel grow and keeps us inspired to keep enchanting you. Tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and become part of our story. She is Clara Moretti, authentic, spontaneous, and a little chaotic, who in that instant had no idea she was stepping into the most surprising chapter of her life. What could have been just an awkward moment would become the beginning of a story marked by contrasts, twists, and an unlikely connection. Because sometimes all it takes is a stumble in the right place for two completely different worlds to collide in an unforgettable way. San Francisco is a city of constant motion, cable cars climbing steep hills, cafes hidden among skyscrapers, and a sea of people rushing through their routines. It is in this vibrant setting that Clara Moretti and Leonardo Vasquez begin to cross paths after the clumsy encounter that will change their lives. Within days, Clara discovers that working under the CEO's command is no easy task. Leonardo is a 42-year-old man known for his near-military discipline, his perfectionism, and his absolute control over every detail of the company he built with his own hands. His words are measured, his schedule meticulously organized, every decision calculated as if life itself were a grand chessboard. Clara, on the other hand, is a whirlwind of improvisation. She arrives at the office with something always slightly out of place. A strand of hair escaping her bun, a spontaneous anecdote, a comment that draws smiles from stressed colleagues. At first, the clash between them is inevitable. Clara cannot understand how anyone can live by such rigid rules, while Leonardo watches her like someone trying to decipher an unbreakable code. In meetings, she suggests bold, seemingly disorganized ideas that earn disapproving looks from the CEO. He, firm and precise, counters each one with unshakable logic, making Clara feel like a piece that doesn't fit. Yet something curious begins to happen. Her chaotic energy, though unsettling, brings an unexpected freshness to the workplace. Where Leonardo sees risks, Clara sees possibilities. Where he builds barriers, she finds creative shortcuts. Their differences show even more outside the meeting room. At a cafe near the office, Clara orders an improvised sandwich, mixing ingredients without a second thought, while Leonardo requests the same carefully planned meal every time. Walking through the streets, she stops to watch street performers and marvels at colorful shop windows, while he keeps his eyes fixed on his phone, answering emails and organizing appointments. Beneath those contrasts, a quiet fascination grows. Leonardo starts to realize that her spontaneity, so unsettling to him, awakens something dormant, a memory of a time when living wasn't just about hitting targets. Clara, in turn, sees more than the rigid man he appears to be. Slowly, she senses the silent loneliness hidden behind immaculate suits and concise answers. He is a man who has achieved everything he ever wanted, yet seems to have lost something essential along the way, the lightness of simply existing without calculations, without strategies, without the weight of decisions affecting thousands. That contrast becomes the thread that draws them together. The clash of worlds intensifies in unexpected moments. During a presentation, Clara spills a cup of coffee on her own desk, earning discreet chuckles from the team. Leonardo, however, shows his irritation, correcting her in front of everyone. But when she responds with humor and continues her talk even more engagingly, what should have been a disaster turns into a highlight. Leonardo is forced to admit, if only silently, that there is something effective about her boldness. As the weeks pass, their constant sparring becomes almost a game. Clara teases with small irreverences, while Leonardo tries to keep her within his strict lines. Yet the more he resists, the more he notices how her energy infects the team, bringing enthusiasm to a workplace that used to be far too rigid. In this improbable balance, a connection takes root that is impossible to ignore. The contrast between them is not only professional, but personal. At a corporate party, while Leonardo remains discreet, greeting investors and discussing business, Clara dives into lively conversations, dances to the band, and wins everyone's affection. From a distance, Leonardo watches, torn between disapproval and admiration. Deep down, he envies her freedom, the way she inhabits the moment without worrying about judgment. Their opposing worlds create not just conflict, but openings for profound change. Clara begins to learn from Leonardo's discipline, realizing that life also demands responsibility and focus. Leonardo, in turn, starts to see that the rigidity he once considered his greatest strength can sometimes be an invisible prison. Their daily encounters, full of sparks and tension, build a bridge between two universes that once seemed impossible to unite. What began as constant friction turns into a delicate dance of opposites. She brings color to the gray of spreadsheets and contracts, while he offers structure to her improvised ideas. And even without admitting it, each meeting, each debate, each silent glance makes it clear that beneath all their differences lies something deeper connecting them, a bond growing precisely because it springs from a clash of worlds. Clara Moretti's first professional assignments within the company become fertile ground for the improbable to take shape. After weeks of tense encounters and cautious looks, Leonardo Vasquez decides to truly test her. He gives her tasks that, in his mind, would be nearly impossible for someone with so little experience in such a competitive environment. Clara, however, faces each challenge with a mix of nervousness and daring, stumbling over details, yet surprising everyone with the results. The first major test comes when an international client visits the San Francisco office. Leonardo, ever meticulous, prepares a flawless meeting, but Clara notices subtle translation errors in the presentation materials. Without waiting for instructions, she steps in and corrects them using her language skills naturally. At first, the move seems brazen, but the client's reaction is so positive that the meeting ends with unexpected praise. Leonardo remains silent before the group, yet in his eyes there is a quiet acknowledgement that Clara, chaotic as she may be, has a talent that cannot be ignored. Over time, other moments follow. At a networking event, when a negotiation seems lost, Clara improvises. Instead of sticking to the rigid script prepared by the team, she tells a personal story that connects her own life to the company's product. The investors, who had grown bored, listen attentively and finish the evening exchanging business cards, eager to continue the conversation. Leonardo again watches the scene unfold with a mix of disbelief and fascination. It is not how he does business, but he cannot deny the effectiveness of her unpredictable approach. These early successes, however, do not erase the tension. Leonardo remains strict, demanding, and intolerant of mistakes. Clara, for her part, still slips on details, forgetting minor deadlines, mixing up spreadsheets, even knocking over a projector just minutes before a presentation. In a surprising turn, Clara always manages to find a way to turn the game in her favor. That same day, instead of panicking over the broken equipment, she improvises an engaging speech that captures everyone's attention without a single slide. The board not only forgives the incident, but applauds the young woman's poise. Gradually, the chemistry between them begins to show, even though neither wants to admit it. During business trips, moments once unthinkable start to surface. At the airport, while waiting for a delayed flight, Clara jokes about the situation, turning boredom into laughter with absurd stories about the passengers around them. Leonardo, who usually spends every spare minute reviewing reports, finds himself, for the first time in ages, setting his phone aside to listen. In the car on the way to meetings, Leonardo's meticulous silence is broken by Clara's light conversation, observations about the city's small details and unexpected reflections on life. He doesn't say much, but he listens, as if each of her words slowly dismantles the icy wall he has built around himself. This growing closeness is reflected in the team as well. Colleagues who once saw Clara as an odd, out-of-place presence begin to admire her courage in facing difficult situations with spontaneity. Leonardo, once viewed as a distant and almost untouchable figure, starts to seem more human at her side. Their relationship, though marked by sharp differences, brings balance. She softens his rigidity, and he gives shape to her energy. The most significant turning point arrives during a mission in Los Angeles, where the company must negotiate a crucial contract. Clara is included in the trip, initially as support. For her, the opportunity alone is a huge step. During preparations, Leonardo maintains his firm demeanor, but cannot ignore her excitement, the way her eyes shine at the chance to be part of something so important. Deep down, he feels a strange responsibility, almost as if he is bringing along someone who somehow rekindles something dormant within him. During the flight, sharing the same space, their silences are charged with meaning. Restless, Clara tries to chat, asking questions and daring to comment on how he seems to live in an untouchable world of his own. Leonardo, unwilling to reveal much, answers curtly, but the spark in his eyes betrays him. His curiosity about her is growing. Clara notices but doesn't push, letting the silence become its own unspoken conversation. When they arrive in Los Angeles amid intense meetings, the first truly conspiratorial moment between them unfolds. After an exhausting day, on the way back to the hotel, Clara gets lost in the corridors and, laughing at herself, asks for help. Leonardo, who once would have been irritated, ends up laughing too, as if for a brief instant he has forgotten the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. That simple moment becomes symbolic. It shows that even coming from opposite worlds, there is a space between them where rigidity meets lightness and chaos finds order. Thus, Clara's early professional missions not only test her abilities, but also reveal cracks in Leonardo's armor. Through mistakes turned into successes and improbable moments transformed into opportunities, a subtle, almost invisible closeness emerges, impossible to deny. What began as a relationship of clashing opposites slowly transforms into a connection neither of them had foreseen, marked by a growing chemistry that strengthens with every new challenge. As Clara Moretti begins to stand out, earning her place and proving that her presence at the company goes far beyond stumbles and improvisation, the first signs of resistance soon appear. Vanessa Collins, an ambitious colleague known for her office politics, watches Clara's every move with a mix of envy and disdain. Vanessa has years of experience, well-established relationships, and a comfortable position on the organizational chart, but the young woman's sudden rise threatens her territory. She quickly realizes that Clara not only draws Leonardo Vasquez's attention, but also wins the respect of clients and colleagues, something Vanessa finds unacceptable. Her first moves are subtle, discreet, almost imperceptible remarks in meetings or hallways question Clara's ability to handle serious responsibilities. "Don't you think it's a bit early for her to take that on alone?" she asks with a smile that never reaches her eyes. At first, Clara tries to ignore it, focusing on her work and trusting in her own competence. But Vanessa's negative energy spreads like a shadow, seeping into conversations and the glances of less confident coworkers. When subtlety proves insufficient, Vanessa escalates. She begins to set small traps, leaving documents incomplete, omitting essential information in meetings, and at times spreading rumors about Clara's supposed lack of professionalism. In one instance, Vanessa shares a distorted version of an email Clara sent, suggesting she wasn't taking an important project seriously. The rumor spreads quickly, and for a moment Clara finds herself surrounded by questioning eyes. Leonardo, attentive to every detail, notices these maneuvers but acts with calculation. He does not confront Vanessa immediately. He prefers to watch, gather evidence, and intervene strategically when necessary. For Clara, however, the situation grows heavy. She feels wronged and, for the first time since joining the company, begins to wonder if she truly belongs in such a competitive environment. The tension rises, and the young woman feels the weight of mounting pressure, not only from the work itself, but from the constant attacks on her integrity. Meanwhile, corporate social networks become another battlefield. With access to photos of company events and dinners, Vanessa starts sharing images of Clara in relaxed moments, twisting captions and comments to suggest the young woman doesn't take her duties seriously. It is a silent but highly effective war. Colleagues who once admired Clara start to doubt her professionalism. Always transparent, Clara feels the impact of these actions. The young woman who once trusted her own authenticity now must endure a subtle but corrosive hostility that questions not only her abilities, but her reputation. The situation reaches its peak when Vanessa manages to plant doubts about Clara's integrity within the company's board. In a tense meeting, board members begin questioning whether the young woman truly deserves Leonardo's trust. Every word, every glance carries implicit judgment. Despite her nerves, Clara stands firm, defending herself with quiet strength, though the pressure is almost unbearable. Seeing this, Leonardo makes a bold decision. He intervenes publicly to defend Clara, taking on part of the political risk himself. The CEO's action not only protects the young woman, but also sends a clear message of his confidence in her abilities, showing that professional respect and loyalty can outweigh intrigue and personal agendas. Even so, the emotional toll on Clara is evident. In the days that follow, she withdraws, reflecting on her role and how to balance authenticity and professionalism in a workplace that often feels hostile. Vanessa, though momentarily defeated, doesn't disappear. Her presence lingers as a reminder that in the corporate world, someone's success can provoke envy and attempts at sabotage. This period of intrigue and obstacles tests Clara not just professionally but personally, forcing her to face the harsher side of human relationships. She learns that competence alone is not enough. Courage, resilience, and the ability to remain true to oneself are essential, even amid silent, manipulative attacks. Leonardo, for his part, proves that leadership goes beyond financial results. It means protecting talent, trusting those who deserve it, and taking risks when necessary. The tension between Clara and Vanessa shapes the young woman's next steps, strengthening her resolve. Every act of sabotage, every spiteful comment or rumor becomes a silent motivator for her to prove, to herself and to everyone, that her authenticity is not a weakness, but her greatest strength. And even amid the chaos stirred by these intrigues, a deeper connection between Clara and Leonardo solidifies, uniting them in a space where trust, respect, and understanding begin to outweigh the hostility of the world around them. The trip to Los Angeles became a turning point in Clara Moretti's path within the company. Until then, many had seen her as a promising but unpredictable talent. Yet she now had the chance to prove not only her adaptability, but also her ability to make critical decisions under pressure. The contract at stake involved a multi-million-dollar partnership, and the success of the negotiation was essential for the company's expansion. Leonardo Vasquez, always methodical and controlling, began to notice that Clara possessed a rare intuition, able to balance risk and opportunity in a surprising way. The morning of the meeting was tense. Clara reviewed every detail of the documents, making sure there were no errors, while Leonardo monitored each move with sharp, calculating eyes. The representatives of the other company arrived early, already showing skepticism. From the first moment, it was clear the negotiation would not be simple. They demanded guarantees, precise timelines, and an impeccable presentation of financial results. Clara was prepared, but the pressure was tangible, and any slip could jeopardize months of work. During the meeting, small discrepancies in the contracts appeared. Some financial data were unclear, and the visiting team began questioning certain clauses. Tension grew by the minute. Without hesitation, Clara stepped in calmly and confidently, explaining technical points and proposing intelligent adjustments that protected the interests of both sides. Leonardo, who normally controlled every word in high-stakes negotiations, realized Clara was handling the situation with unexpected confidence, turning a potential disaster into an opportunity to impress the clients. As the meeting progressed, Clara's poise began to shift the dynamics. The other company's representatives, initially doubtful, started to listen closely to her words. She conveyed clarity, assurance, and a quiet empathy, something Leonardo knew could be decisive. Her ability to remain composed under stress and to offer creative solutions without seeming impulsive revealed a talent he had not fully recognized. Each of Clara's interventions reinforced her competence and earned the respect of everyone present. At a critical moment, one clause threatened to derail the negotiation. The representatives insisted on a condition that could put the company at risk. Clara, undaunted, stood, asked detailed questions, analyzed alternatives, and presented a solution that balanced protection and flexibility, meeting both sides' interests. Leonardo, until then silent, realized his presence was only complimentary. Clara was leading the negotiation with skill and ease. Her solution not only preserved the company's integrity, but deeply impressed the clients. When the contract was finally signed, a quiet mix of relief and celebration filled the room. Leonardo, usually restrained, allowed a brief smile of approval. Clara, still catching her breath, felt a blend of pride and relief. It was more than a professional victory. It was proof that her dedication, courage, and authenticity could deliver concrete results even under extreme pressure. The impact of the successful negotiation was immediate. The team returned to San Francisco certain that Clara was no longer just a promising young professional. She was becoming a key player in the company's strategic growth. Leonardo, in particular, began to see her from a new perspective. He not only recognized her abilities, but trusted her almost instinctively, knowing he could rely on her in crucial moments. This mutual trust, forged in tension and challenge, began to create a bond that went far beyond the professional. Back at the hotel after the signing, Leonardo watched Clara as she relaxed, still absorbing the intense experience of the day. Smiling, she joked about unexpected details of the meeting and about moments that could have gone wrong. He, who once would have silenced any offhand remark, now allowed himself to listen, to feel curious, and even to admire her lightness in success. There, between spreadsheets and contracts, the line between professional respect and personal connection began to blur, laying a solid foundation for what was to come. The Los Angeles episode established Clara as a respected figure in the company, able to face complex challenges with intelligence and authenticity. More than that, it proved that when trust, talent, and courage meet, extraordinary results are possible. For Leonardo, it was a quiet lesson. Not everything must be controlled, and not all skill needs rigid rules to shine. Clara had shown, with mastery, that spontaneity and well-directed chaos can be powerful allies in the corporate world, and in doing so, she strengthened not only her career but also the bond forming between her and the CEO. After the success of the Los Angeles negotiation, the relationship between Clara Moretti and Leonardo Vasquez began to change in subtle but definitive ways. What had once been strictly professional started to gain shades of intimacy, sparked not only by their shared work but by small gestures and moments that softened the rigidity of everyday life. At the hotel, while reviewing final reports and discussing contract details, there were pauses filled with personal conversations, childhood stories and dreams never shared with anyone else. Leonardo, used to keeping his life carefully separate from work, felt something different as Clara naturally entered his private world without ever seeming intrusive. One particularly long evening, after exhausting meetings, Clara suggested a walk along the boardwalk near the hotel. The city was quiet, bathed in soft lights, and the distant hum of traffic seemed to wash away the day's tension. Leonardo initially hesitated, claiming he needed to review documents, but something in Clara's tone convinced him to join her. During that walk, they laughed over everyday situations, spoke of their hometowns, and exchanged glances that had never existed between boss and subordinate. It was delicate ground, where the line between professional and personal became beautifully, unexpectedly blurred. Their growing closeness also emerged in small daily gestures. Leonardo, who had always maintained a rigid posture, began to allow brief touches of warmth. A more heartfelt greeting, a spontaneous compliment when Clara solved a problem creatively. She, in turn, felt more confident and at ease, realizing she could be herself without diminishing her professional credibility. The chemistry between them, once felt only in tension and disagreements, began to show in shared laughter, lingering looks, and conversations that stretched far beyond what work required. During a celebratory dinner at the end of the trip, the formal restaurant atmosphere seemed to dissolve in the ease of their growing connection. Leonardo, usually impassive, spoke about his preferences, passions, and even his fears, things he rarely shared with anyone. Clara listened intently, showing genuine interest and offering her own perspective with sincerity and without judgment. Their bond was not just attraction, it was respect, curiosity, and a mutual understanding that made them both feel more alive. In the days that followed, their intimacy deepened in quiet but meaningful ways. In the hotel room, reviewing documents for a final meeting, Leonardo found himself appreciating Clara's presence even when she laughed at a trivial detail or spoke of something completely unrelated to work. She, for her part, felt a strange safety in the CEO's nearness, a mix of comfort and tension that made every interaction more intense. One particular incident marked this period of growing closeness. During the last client meeting, an unexpected technical problem threatened the final presentation. Clara, remaining calm, stepped forward, quickly reorganized the information, and delivered an improvised yet effective solution. Leonardo, watching her confidence and poise, felt a wave of pride mixed with something he couldn't quite name. At the end of the meeting, as everyone celebrated the success, their eyes met for a prolonged, silent moment, conveying more than words ever could. The tension between them remained, now accompanied by a complicity neither of them could ignore. On the way back to the hotel, the silence was not uncomfortable. It was loaded with meaning. Every gesture, every approach, every restrained smile indicated that something had changed. Leonardo began to realize that the rigidity that had always been his shield could be softened without losing authority or respect. Clara, on the other hand, understood that her chaotic and spontaneous nature could coexist with the CEO's discipline, and that the combination of the two could generate unexpectedly positive results, both professionally and personally. The growing intimacy, although subtle, began to shape not only how each perceived the other, but also how they handled challenges and decisions. Clara felt she could rely on Leonardo on a more personal level, and he realized that trusting her could be as strategic as any business decision. Amid laughter, glances, and silent conversations, their relationship ceased to be purely professional, opening space for something deeper, more human, and above all, impossible to ignore. By the end of the trip, as they bid farewell to the client, there was something different in the air. It wasn't just the success of the negotiation that accompanied them, but the certainty that something was beginning between them. The relationship that started with stumbles and clashes was transforming into a subtle intimacy, charged with tension, complicity, and a chemistry that promised to challenge not only their routines, but the way they understood their lives. The trip to Los Angeles not only solidified Clara as a professional, it also marked the beginning of a chapter in which heart and reason started to coexist, paving the way for what was to come. Vanessa Collins was not pleased with what she saw and once again tried to undermine Clara, creating an atmosphere of distrust around Clara Moretti. Minor inconsistencies in reports or minimal delays, which would normally go unnoticed, were amplified and turned into evidence of alleged unprofessionalism. The peak of the tension occurred during a board meeting scheduled to discuss recent results and expansion strategies. Clara was called to present a detailed report on her last mission, the Los Angeles negotiation. Upon entering the room, she felt the eyes fixed on her, each laden with implicit judgment. Some members, influenced by Vanessa, questioned Clara's decisions, deadlines, and methods. There were veiled suspicions that she wasn't following procedures correctly, and the atmosphere was one of judgment, not dialogue. Every word Clara spoke was scrutinized, every gesture observed, as if they were searching for a flaw to confirm unfounded suspicions. Despite her nervousness, Clara maintained her composure. She responded to each question with clarity and precision, explaining in detail the reasoning behind every decision and demonstrating the concrete results achieved. Her voice, firm and convincing, left no room for ambiguity. Yet the pressure from dozens of distrustful eyes was almost tangible. She felt she was at the limit, that every word had to be perfect, and that any mistake could be used against her. Yet a silent determination burned inside her, to prove that her competence didn't rely on external approval, but on results and dedication. Leonardo Vasquez, ever attentive, watched every step. He knew the attack was not only professional, but personal. He saw Clara face, with courage, a hostile environment that no training could prepare someone to confront. Despite his methodical and reserved nature, he felt it was time to put an end to attempts to undermine her. The board questioned Clara but also tested his own authority. Remaining passive could undermine not only confidence in the young woman, but his own leadership. With a quiet sigh, he decided to intervene. When a board member insinuated that perhaps Leonardo had trusted Clara out of whim or personal sympathy, he stood, posture impeccable, voice firm. He defended Clara unwaveringly, citing concrete examples of her competence and highlighting results achieved under pressure. He argued that questioning her integrity without evidence would be unfair, and that, in the absence of proof, the trust he placed in her professionalism should be respected. His defense was not only to protect Clara, but also a demonstration of his conviction that leadership involves protecting talent and recognizing merit when it is evident. Leonardo's intervention changed the dynamics of the meeting. The ensuing silence was heavy, filled with surprise and respect. Clara felt a mix of relief and gratitude, but also a deep emotion. Someone had risked their own position to protect her. The psychological impact was immediate. For the first time since joining the company, she realized she was not alone, that Leonardo's trust was genuine, and that this alliance could help her overcome not only the current situation but future challenges. In the following days, Clara still dealt with echoes of intrigue, but Leonardo's stance had reinforced her position. Colleagues who had previously hesitated to support her began to recognize her value. Vanessa, though not removed, faced greater obstacles in attempting to harm Clara. Leonardo's public defense not only solidified Clara, but also made it clear that sabotage would have consequences. The young woman learned in a profound way that competence combined with courage and loyalty could overcome unexpected and unfair attacks. This phase of crisis solidified Clara as a respected professional, not just for results, but for her integrity under pressure. More than that, it strengthened the bond between her and Leonardo. Amid tension and challenges, a silent understanding emerged. In a world where intrigue and personal interests prevail, trust, courage, and mutual support become the greatest forces. It was in this crucible of trials that Clara understood the value of remaining true to herself, while Leonardo realized that protecting talent also meant protecting the very essence of leadership. After the intense episode in which the board questioned her integrity, Clara Moretti felt emotionally exhausted. All the effort to prove her competence, combined with Vanessa Collins's intrigues and the weight of her colleagues' judgment, made her realize she needed to step back and reflect. She decided to take a few days for herself, seeking to regain the essence that had always guided her: spontaneity, authenticity, and the desire to positively impact people's lives without the constant pressure of the corporate environment. Clara returned to Oakland, her hometown, where childhood memories always brought comfort. She went to a community center she had frequented as a girl, a place that welcomed children in vulnerable situations, offering educational and recreational activities. Upon entering the space, she felt a mix of nostalgia and relief. She was far from corporate intrigues, surrounded by laughter, color, and genuine energy. There, among games, drawings, and shared stories, Clara rediscovered the freedom to be herself, without masks or external pressures. Every child who greeted her or shared a small achievement reminded her why she had always wanted to make a difference, regardless of positions, contracts, or titles. As she dedicated herself to organizing activities and interacting with the children, Clara reflected on her trajectory in the company, the challenges she faced, and the complexity of human relationships. She realized that, although she had earned respect and achieved remarkable results, part of her energy had been drained by disputes and distrust. The community center was not only an emotional refuge, but also a place that reminded her that her worth did not depend on others' validation. The impact she had on people's lives, even through small gestures, was genuine and meaningful. As Clara rediscovered her essence, Leonardo Vasquez faced her absence in a way he had not anticipated. The CEO, accustomed to controlling situations and outcomes, felt for the first time the void left by someone whose presence he was beginning to recognize as indispensable. Every decision seemed heavier, every meeting emptier, without Clara's insightful interventions and sharp eye. He began to understand deeply how much he had become attached to the unique way she approached challenges, always with courage and authenticity, and how her energy complemented his own rigidity, making him not only a better leader, but a more human man. Determined not to let her absence linger, Leonardo sought out Clara. He arrived at the community center on a sunny afternoon, watching from a distance as she engaged with the children, distributing attention and care without a thought for the world outside. The scene, so far removed from the corporate environment and so genuine, touched him deeply. He felt he needed to approach her, not just to speak about work, but to reconnect with the person who had silently begun to transform his life. Clara noticed his presence even before he got close. The initial shock gave way to a mixture of surprise and emotion. Leonardo walked toward her with an unusual posture. Without his usual rigidity, his gaze conveyed sincerity and vulnerability. He spoke clearly and honestly, acknowledging the pressure she had faced, expressing admiration for her strength, and explaining that her absence had been felt more than he had realized. For the first time, these were not words spoken in formal meetings or official documents. They were human words, laden with emotion and meaning. The conversation stretched on for hours, filled with laughter, memories of Clara's childhood, and reflections on choices, fears, and desires. They talked about the chaos of their lives, how professional and personal challenges had shaped them, and the necessity of trusting one another, not just as colleagues, but as partners. Leonardo recognized that despite his rigidity, he needed to learn to make room for spontaneity and vulnerability, while Clara realized she didn't have to face the world alone. Their connection deepened based on mutual understanding, respect, and silent admiration. As the afternoon drew to a close and the sun began to set over Oakland, there was a moment of shared silence. Leonardo gently held Clara's hand, conveying something words could not yet fully express. A silent plea to walk side by side again, facing the challenges ahead together. Clara smiled, feeling a mixture of relief, joy, and anticipation. In that community center, among colors, laughter, and childhood memories, they both understood that life outside the office could be shared, and that together, balancing chaos and control, they could overcome any obstacle, strengthening a connection that extended far beyond the corporate world. The reunion in Oakland marked the end of a tense phase and the beginning of a new chapter. Clara regained her essence, Leonardo discovered the importance of her presence in his life, and together they realized that the partnership forming between them extended beyond work into something deeper, a relationship built on trust, respect, and genuine affection, ready to face the highs and lows yet to come. The marriage proposal took place on a spring afternoon by Lake Merritt in Oakland, a place that held quiet, profound memories for Clara Moretti. After the intense period of reflection and reconnection at the community center, they walked together along the lake shore, feeling the gentle breeze and watching the reflections of trees dancing on the water. There was a comfortable silence between them, filled with meaning, where words were unnecessary to understand the strength of the bond that had formed. Every step, every exchanged glance conveyed the newly discovered intimacy and complicity growing between chaos and discipline, spontaneity and control. As they walked, Leonardo Vasquez spoke little, but his gestures conveyed attention and care. Clara, feeling lighter and more authentic than she had in months, shared stories about the children at the community center. Their laughter, achievements, and even small conflicts resolved with her help. Leonardo listened, absorbing every detail, realizing that that simple yet genuine space represented far more than he had imagined. It was a reflection of Clara's strength, courage, and humanity. The turning point came when they reached a small wooden platform extending over the lake. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, creating a scene that seemed almost unreal. Leonardo stopped, turned to Clara, and held her hands firmly, yet without rigidity. For the first time, there was no protocol, no calculation, no CEO-like posture. There was only sincerity and emotion. He began to speak about everything he felt, his admiration for her courage, the way she faced challenges, her authenticity that she never tried to hide. He spoke about how her presence had transformed his own life, making him more human, more attentive, and less rigid. Clara felt a mixture of surprise, emotion, and a slight nervousness. Every word Leonardo spoke reached deeply, revealing not only feelings but also vulnerability, something he rarely showed. The silence that followed was charged with anticipation, and in that moment, time seemed to slow. The lake reflected the colorful sky as if nature itself were witnessing that singular moment, filled with meaning. Then, Leonardo, with unexpected gentleness, knelt before her, holding a small box that shimmered subtly in the light of the setting sun. Clara, surprised and moved, felt her heart race. He spoke about his desire to walk beside her, not only in moments of success, but also through difficulties, challenges, and the unforeseen. He expressed that, although their journey together had begun with stumbles and personality clashes, every moment had drawn them closer in a unique way, creating a partnership that went far beyond the professional. Leonardo's words carried more than love. They carried recognition, respect, and the promise of a shared life. He asked Clara to be his partner forever, to accept building a story together with all the risks, adventures, and chaos life could bring. Clara, with tears in her eyes and her heart racing, felt that every challenge she had faced, every conflict and every victory, had prepared her for this moment. The marriage proposal was not only a symbol of union, it was a celebration of everything they had achieved together and the mutual trust they had built. Clara's response came naturally. Amid smiles and tears, she said yes, feeling completely aligned with Leonardo, as if all the pieces of their chaotic lives had finally fallen into place. The embrace that followed was not just of romantic love, but of complicity, trust, and true partnership. Both felt that this moment marked not only a formal decision, but the confirmation that they were ready to face the future together, with all the highs and lows life might bring. As they walked hand in hand, the sky reflected golden hues over the lake, and the atmosphere seemed imbued with a silent magic, as if the universe were celebrating their union. Leonardo and Clara walked along the platform, talking about dreams, plans, and how they wished their lives to unfold, maintaining the authenticity and spontaneity that had always defined Clara, and the stability and care that Leonardo now knew how to provide in balance. The afternoon by Lake Merritt was etched in their memories as the moment when chaos and discipline, spontaneity and rigidity finally found harmony. It was a marriage proposal that not only sealed a romantic relationship, but solidified a partnership built on respect, trust, admiration, and true love. In that instant, Clara and Leonardo realized they were ready to face any challenge together, confident that the strength of the connection they had built could overcome any obstacle, transforming their lives into a story that, until then, no one could have predicted, but which now had a clear beginning, a sincere and profound commitment by the lakeside, reflecting dreams and promises of a shared future. 6 months after the unforgettable marriage proposal by the shores of Lake Merritt, Clara Moretti and Leonardo Vasquez were preparing to celebrate their union in Monterey, in a ceremony that perfectly reflected the essence of both: intimate, spontaneous, and full of personality. The chosen location was a secluded beach, where the sound of the waves mingled with the wind, creating a scene that was at once romantic and relaxed. Clara decided not to follow rigid conventions. She wore a simple, light dress, barefoot on the sand, allowing each step to reflect her authenticity. Leonardo, in turn, surprised everyone by adopting a more relaxed demeanor than ever before, smiling naturally and leaving behind the rigidity that had always accompanied him, demonstrating that the transformation Clara had inspired in him was profound and genuine. The ceremony began with the sunset illuminating the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Family and close friends gathered, but the focus remained on the two of them, whose individual stories and personal journeys now converged into a tangible union. Clara walked lightly on the sand, each gesture conveying the strength of her authenticity, the same trait that had always set her apart. Leonardo waited for her with a genuine smile, his eyes shining with emotion, aware that this union symbolized more than love. It represented the meeting of two worlds that, despite being opposites, had found harmony. The officiant began the ceremony, but quickly realized that the moment would transcend any protocol. Clara and Leonardo exchanged vows that reflected their journeys, the challenges they had overcome, and the lessons they had shared. Each word carried emotion, respect, and humor, showcasing the solid partnership they had built. Clara spoke of Leonardo's spontaneity, which had gradually shown the ability to embrace chaos without losing direction, while Leonardo highlighted Clara's courage and authenticity, which had transformed his outlook on life and leadership. The balance between sincerity and lightness made the ceremony unique, personal, and unforgettable. After the vows, the symbolic moment of exchanging rings reinforced the commitment they were making. Clara carefully placed the ring on Leonardo's finger, smiling softly, while he reciprocated with a mix of tenderness and reverence. The beach breeze played with her dress and his hair, and the guests could not help but be moved by a couple who displayed not only love, but mutual understanding and complicity. In that moment, the ceremony transcended mere formality. It became a celebration of the life they had built together, their personal transformations, and the promise of a shared future. Soon after the ceremony, the guests gathered for a small seaside celebration. Laughter, stories, and memories were shared, yet the focus remained on Clara and Leonardo, whose visible chemistry captivated everyone. She remained barefoot, walking naturally on the sand, playfully teasing Leonardo, who laughed with a spontaneity that had previously been absent from his repertoire. It was as if the ceremony had released not only their emotions, but also a lightness that reflected what they had learned along the way, that love, respect, and authenticity can transform lives. At the end of the day, after the sunset and the close of the celebration, a quiet surprise awaited Leonardo. Clara was pregnant. When she shared the news, a mix of astonishment, joy, and emotion swept over the couple. Leonardo hugged her tightly, feeling that this moment represented not only the beginning of a family, but the continuation of a cycle where chaos and discipline, spontaneity and planning now coexisted harmoniously. Clara smiled, sensing that the adventure of their life together was just beginning, and that despite all the challenges to come, they would be ready to face them as partners, with love and trust. The conclusion of their story went beyond the wedding celebration or the news of the pregnancy. It symbolized the transformation of two lives that, despite being opposite in personality and path, had found a point of balance. Clara remained true to her essence, while Leonardo learned that rigidity could coexist with lightness, and that trusting someone with authenticity and courage could open doors that absolute control never could. Together, they demonstrated that true love does not erase differences, but transforms them into strength, partnership, and mutual growth. As they walked along the beach at the end of the night, hand in hand, feeling the breeze and listening to the sea, Clara and Leonardo looked at each other and understood that they were prepared for any challenge. Life, with all its chaos and surprises, could no longer intimidate them, because now they had the certainty that together they could face anything. The wedding ceremony and the revelation of the pregnancy symbolized not only their formal union, but the beginning of a new chapter full of love, partnership, and the promise of a shared life, ready to be lived with intensity, authenticity, and joy. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this amazing story of Clara and Leonardo? Then subscribe to Enchanting Stories and join our ever-growing community full of adventures and emotions. Don't forget to leave a like and hit the bell so you never miss a magical story. Tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. We love traveling along with you. Come along with us, and let's turn every video into an unforgettable moment together.